you. Good evening. My name is Gary Bailey. I'm the acting chairman of the Zoning Board of Appeals for tonight's meeting. I call the meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before we start, I assume everyone saw the notice about COVID on the door. If you're vaccinated, fully vaccinated, the township does not require you to wear a mask. If you want to wear a mask, you can. If you're not vaccinated, you should have a mask on. If you're not vaccinated and don't want to wear a mask, please leave. In addition, tonight's agenda, all the board members have a copy of it. I would like to amend that slightly.
Second.
Well, let me say what it is first. We're going to have an open meeting session on the Open Meetings Act. Mr. Jameson will take care of that for us, and with board approval, it will follow public comment. Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I hope everyone's had a chance to look at the meeting minutes from July 27th. Any comments on the meeting minutes? Hearing none, I would like a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Tonight's agenda concerns appeal number 21007. We'll follow our usual procedure. Mr. Borden will give a brief summary, then we'll ask the applicant to follow him, then we'll bring it back to the board. After that time, we will have public comment. Mr. Borden, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Get this organized. That's all we got. All right. First case tonight, only case tonight, let me clarify. 20710 East River Road. This is a request related to the expansion of an existing accessory building, more specifically a detached accessory building. The property can be seen on the screen. It's on the west side of East River, north of Church Road. Site and surrounding properties are within the R1A single-family residential district. And the variance request is tied to an expansion of the existing detached accessory building that you can see the arrow pointed to on the aerial photo. Applicable sections are 19.11, which regulates detached accessory buildings. A little bit of background before we get into the actual request. So, as part of the review process, an interesting little item came to our attention, and that is back in 2005, the previous owner of this property petitioned the Zoning Board of Appeals for a detached accessory building at a height of 15 feet. 12 feet is the maximum allowed for this size property. That request was denied. However, the building was built. It did obtain permits. It did obtain township approval at that time. I have no idea how that happened. So I'm going to leave it at that, but it happened. So I did think it was important to bring up. It came to our attention. I think it's part of the discussion. I do want to reiterate that it was approved by the township, despite the ZBA denying it, and it was not the petitioner that is before you this evening. It was a different property owner. So this owner had no involvement in that process. Did you have a question?
Yes, do we know if it was the building permits were for the 12-foot height of the garage, or did they actually do 15?
I have no idea. I've got the full file. We can dig through it if we want. I don't know. That's the short answer. Sorry. It's not the good answer, but it's the short and easy one. The project before you this evening.
One more.
Yeah, of course.
You said that was the previous owner?
Correct.
Nobody in between?
Oh, I have no idea. It was not the current applicant. It was not the current owner.
A previous owner.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, whether there have been 10 sales or one, I don't know. So, yeah, the proposal that's before you is an expansion of that building where it would match the existing height. So again, 12 foot's the max. This is at 15, so that's one issue. And it also is currently, it's a little under 750 square feet. The max is 900. This addition would take it to 1,200. So the two issues at hand, aside from the other items we may need to deal with, are the height and the size of the proposed addition. And this didn't zoom in much, but so the right-hand side of this is essentially a view of the site. You can see the residence towards the street. Blue is the existing detached accessory building. Red is the proposed addition. Left side of the screen are just simply two elevation views of this proposed addition. Again, at 15-foot height. We do have some photos of the existing site. Again, Board Member Schweikert was kind enough to go out, do a visit, and send some photos to me. So upper left is the view of the front of the detached garage. The lower left is the south side of the detached, I'll call it detached accessory building for clarification. Upper right is sort of front view, but from the north side. Lower right is the rear. And then square in the middle there is actually another item. It's not depicted on the site plan, but I wanted to bring it up tonight since Mr. Schweikert took the photos and saw it. There is actually a second detached accessory building on this site as well. So while it may not directly impact the request that's before you, that is essentially another non-conforming condition, for lack of a better term. I'm unaware that any approvals were sought for or obtained for that particular building.
That's the one in the middle photograph?
Yeah,
Okay.
much smaller, but
Okay.
but it's there. My understanding is it is further towards the rear of the property. So essentially between the building we're talking about and the rear lot line. Correct. Yeah, again, it's doesn't help much, but not depicted on the site plan, but it is back there somewhere. You can see, I think the best I could judge from it, I believe the break at the sort of the top of that site plan view, that may be a reference to the overhead wires as opposed to actually a break in the lot depth. And you can see the overhead wires that are in front of the central picture. If you look closely, they're kind of blending in with the tree line. But so my guess is that it's sort of in that location, if that makes sense. So for the purposes of our review, and I guess for the initial part of the presentation and conversation tonight, we have treated this as a non-conforming building. Again, the information about the ZBA denial in 05 and how the building got there is all subsequent to the letter being issued, and I don't know that we have a great handle yet exactly on how it happened, but it happened. It's there. So we know that. So for my purposes, that's how I've reviewed it. That's how I'm going to discuss it at this point. Certainly we can have further conversation about that. So section 18.6A has standards for allowable expansions of non-conforming buildings. In this case, those standards are not met. So that becomes the first variance that would be required, again, based on my review and in the information I had at the time. With respect to the detached accessory building regulations, I mentioned earlier there's a maximum height of 12 feet and a maximum area of 900 square feet on properties with less than 30,000 square feet in area. Roughly, based on the plan, I had the property at roughly 20,000 square feet, though I do think they have some land across the street on the waterfront side. That's not included in this, but the lot is still well below the 30,000 square foot threshold. And then As you noticed in my letter, one of the recurring themes is sort of a reference back to what would a conventional R1A lot be allowed. Conventional R1A lots are minimum area of 30,000 square feet. Lots that have at least 30,000 square feet are allowed 15-foot tall accessory buildings with a maximum area of 1,200 square feet. And again, that's the request that's before you tonight. But for our purposes, because of the size of the lot, those become variance number 2 and variance number 3. The first being a size increase, and then the second being, or really the second and then the third being its height matching the existing 15 feet. So a quick look at the review standards in 23.5B, just a summary of my review. So strict compliance won't prevent them continued use of the property for a residential purpose. But in this case, an expansion of that building is not allowed without a variance. You could view that as unnecessarily burdensome to the homeowner. As I mentioned on the last slide, were the site a conforming R1A lot, then the proposed accessory building would be allowed by right. So in this case, when you're looking under the property rights, preservation of property rights criterion, I think you can make a case, as well as under the substantial justice, that the request could be viewed as fair to both this property owner as well as other owners in the area. And specifically because if you look at this site in relation to the neighborhood, it is far and away the smallest lot anywhere near it, at 40-foot width in an 80-foot district and roughly 20,000 square feet in a 30,000 square foot district. And I'm going to go back to the aerial real quickly. And you take a look at the properties and the homes in this area, there aren't even 30,000 square foot lots in this area. These are roughly acre plus lots. I mean, so the half acre lot is substantially smaller than any lot in the neighborhood, and its width is exceptionally narrow when you compare it with the other properties in the neighborhood. Both of those being tied to the unique property condition criterion. And I've already mentioned point 4, owners of other compliant R1A lots could build accessory buildings at this height and of this side. And then the closing one is simply a combination of all of the other standards, and that is, at least based on our review, we don't expect there to be adverse impacts on public safety, land values, neighborhood character, supply of light and air, traffic flow, etc., along with the host of your remaining 14 criteria that we have to apply. That's all I have at this time, Mr. Chair. Happy to take any questions.
So he has 2 detached accessory buildings,
That is my understanding, yes.
and he's only allowed 1,
That is correct.
so it's another non-conformity.
Correct.
And, well, I'll wait for the applicant to ask the other. Thank you.
Yep.
Right, could you show us Member Swiger's pictures that you had there?
Yep, absolutely.
And are we able to enlarge those at all?
I can't.
All right, and if there's a way to allow that to be there when the applicant comes up.
Sure.
And I'll point it out for the record now so the applicant can see it. I don't know if you have access to seeing what you are. But the
Sounds great.
picture in the upper left with the white car, and is that the, I'm gonna ask the applicant just so you know, is that the Detroit Edison pole to the left, which would be the southwest corner of that garage, and if so, how close are those power lines to the proposed addition? I didn't know when I was there. We're also gonna have an encroachment issue on DE with those, where those lines are at, since they're not connected to the garage.
Well, I mean, I guess visually, I'll let them answer it. But I mean, visually, it looks like it's towards the front. The proposed expansion is off the rear. But I'll let the applicant give you further clarification on that. Overstep my bounds yet again.
Brian, one more thing. I'm always concerned about neighbors and how this affects them, either positively or negatively. Is there any feedback from that at this point?
Did the staff receive anything? Okay. No, public hearing notices were sent out per ordinance and state law.
Okay.
At this time, township staff did not. Okay, well, we still have to have a public hearing anyway. Township hasn't received any information from neighbors, favorable or otherwise.
Okay.
We still have to hear from the public after we discuss the case, and it sounds like the petitioner may have some support letters that they'd like to hand out too. Thank you.
Applicant or his representative. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hello, Andrea Lakowitz, 20710 East River Road.
You.
Jeff Lakowitz, 20710 East River Road.
Thank you.
Rob Stefke, 22186 Forest, Groseal.
Thank you. Whoever wants to start, please.
Yeah, I'll start. So I think the summary pretty much captures the request. Certainly, purpose of us asking for this is because we are looking to just expand the footprint of our garage. The nature of what we use it for. My wife has a home gym inside of there. She does a ton of projects and crafts, and we just need more space for her. That's kind of the reason why. To me, as we've gotten into this, the compelling aspect that I see from it is the fact that, and the picture shows it quite well, the narrow nature of the lot really becomes the challenge that we're up against. That's what we're fighting against. And when I look at the request and I go through the number of items here which were highlighted, that they don't adversely affect safety, land values, neighborhood character, light and air, it seems like the request fits all of the variances that we're requesting, and we've met that. That would be.
And that little structure that is out back at the very back of our property, we did not put that in either. That was also a previous owner. I don't know, he must not have had permission, I don't know. But to us, it's about a 10 by 10, it's like a tent, size of a tent. It's just visually very beautiful, it matches our home, but it's where our granddaughter plays on occasion. That's just what it's used for. It's very small, and it's at the very back of the property. I do have a photo that might show you how far back better than what this photo is if anybody wants to see it.
Sure, I look at it.
Okay. Oh. So that's like how far back it is from our garage.
So, so this is the garage. It is way back then.
It's way back. I mean,
Okay.
it's, yeah.
No, that picture
Oh.
that she has, so we can all see it at one time.
Oh, yeah, overhead.
Before we do that, can I ask Andrea a question? They were kind enough to bring me back there last night.
John?
What? No, the picture that's up there for John's picture I'm relating to.
Oh,
Okay,
but I-
so the
let's
picture,
find out
that
if she's done before you
I just
start.
want to ask her a question.
Okay.
All right, I'll shut up.
No, you don't. Typically, you let her bring it.
Yeah.
Then I would bring it to you, but if it's important, please.
I just want to ask because it's been a question on my mind since I looked at it. Andrea, when we look back there, you had that staked off back there. And on the drawing, it looks like the whole back of the garage is being extended. And I didn't look like that when you had it staked off. Is the whole back of it being extended?
Well, I did the best I could. The sidewalk interfered with placing the stake in the proper spot. So we had a chalk X, and we went as close
no,
as
I'm
we
not
could.
criticizing your dimensions, but is it there
Yeah,
looks
it's
like there's
attached-
a door
it's attached to the
there.
garage.
It will be
and
attached to the garage.
Yeah.
The
Yep.
whole back of the garage.
Correct.
The whole back of it.
Yep.
So the sheds that are there and whatever are going to be gone then, or?
Yes.
Okay, thank
Yes.
you.
Yep.
No, sorry, Mr.
Yeah, those were
Chairman,
my
I
attempts to try and
Want John's picture to go
help
down.
my lack of storage situation, so.
Are we allowed to see, how do we see that picture that she offered for the view?
May or may not work.
Well, I mean, the question was asked about the neighbors.
Oh,
We
yeah.
do have documentation from our neighbor to the north that says she has no issues with it, and then we have verbal from our neighbors to
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
the south.
Over the bushes, we talked with my other neighbor. They're very elderly and they have absolutely no, they said they did receive the letter in the mail and they have no issue with anything, so.
Okay, anything else?
The one question that was asked about the Edison pole,
Yes.
yeah, I believe that came up.
They're not on the plan.
Not even, yeah, it's not even close to our garage.
Yeah,
Here, well,
I'd be speculating in terms of the distance. I don't know for sure.
yeah, here is a, I have a few other pictures I was trying to take for you so you can get a better idea too. There was one,
Photograph you have here, we can use this one, I believe. That's
Okay.
your shed in the back. It looks to be the Edison poles to the left of the large tree on the left.
Oh, okay.
And those are the electrical lines, horizontal lines going between the proposed addition to your garage and your shed in the back or playhouse, whatever you're calling it. Am I correct? Is that where they're at?
Yeah, there's just no lines like on our property, they're on my neighbor's, so I,
Excuse me?
They don't cross the back of your property between.
oh,
your-
maybe at the very
Yeah,
back,
they
at the
do-
back,
they
not
do
by
at
the
the back,
garage,
yeah.
not by the garage area at all.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is in this photograph that you put up here, they appear to be between your proposed addition to your garage.
So there's a
and
pole there, and they go like that, but
the
there's a
house
cable here.
play area in the back. Is that where the
But that's
lines are in this
real
photo?
far
Yes.
away.
Okay, so they do cross the property nowhere near the proposed.
Correct,
Correct,
yeah,
yeah.
very back,
Yep.
yep.
Okay. All right, I have a few questions before I refer it to the board. Your document, oh, wait, before I get yelled at. Thank you. Your document that you filled out, item 1 under Board of Appeals guidelines, you state, we have 2 proposed prints to show. I have 1. Please explain.
Oh, I'm sorry, I know what it was. Yes, when we were talking with Brian and we were trying to come up with some nice idea of how to make it the best situation for everybody. And instead of just going directly off the back of the garage, we were thinking of maybe doing more of an L shape where we stayed away. I have a back garage stall door at the very back, and I thought if we left that in place and I could open it and get right outside that way, we could just build a longer, leaner extension off the back. So we were thinking of maybe we would propose that also to see, but that's not what we ended up.
So you do have
Going
an
with.
alternative plan that you chose not to bring,
Correct, because we were thinking we don't want it that way, we want it this way.
but it is an alternative plan.
Well, no, well, we never had it
That's what
drawn
it
up.
says here, ma'am. I'm not,
Oh, I'm sorry, I must have wrote that early on, before
okay. With regard to your quote,
we submitted the plan that we want.
with regard to your quote plot plan, how was this developed?
Who did it?
Who and how?
Who
Yep.
printed it?
No.
I'm sorry, I don't understand then.
Came up with the dimensions? Who came up with the drawing?
Frank Haywood, the guy that draws the prints.
And he is, his title on the drawing is residential designer,
Yes.
which means what?
Don't know how to answer that. That's.
Okay,
that's what he
can we
handles.
suffice it to say he's not a surveyor?
A surveyor, no.
He's not an architect?
No, he's a builder and an.
And he's
assessor.
not an engineer?
He's not an engineer.
Okay, then the question becomes, where did these dimensions come from?
He
Plot,
came,
did you have a
yeah, he
existing
came to the
plot
house,
plan
yeah.
Or a mortgage survey?
Yeah.
So, no one can verify the accuracy of these numbers then?
Did you guys give him
Mr. Chair, if you don't mind if I jump in, there is a licensed surveyor prepared drawing in the file, and it does match the plans. The
Okay.
dimensions
I-
match
he-
the
I
plans.
thought he came to the township and spoke
Yeah.
with Lori, I don't know, I honestly, I left it up to him to handle that part because that is not my specialty.
But you're responsible for the drawing, ma'am.
Okay, it looked accurate to me, so I'm
Okay, we don't know how far you are from your neighbor's house.
Say you, what do you mean by you? Which, the structure?
We don't know the distance
property
from
line?
the proposed structure to the neighboring structures
the
on
same as our
either side.
garage, because we're just going behind our garage by 18 feet, so.
But that should be on there. Also, do we know the setback from the existing residence to the property line?
Existing residents?
Yeah, it looks like it's 2 feet.
Oh, on the, what would that be, the north side?
Oh, well, I don't know, there's no north there.
Be the south side.
It's the north side.
Talking
Talking about right here,
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about there.
the existing residence. 2 feet? 10 inches? Less than desirable?
Non-conforming?
Non-conforming. I can accept that, thank you, Brian. Everyone else see that? Non-conforming. Okay, that's all I have for now, thank you.
How long have you been the owners of the home?
July of 2016.
2016? Do you know, Brian mentioned at the outset that there was an applicant back in 2005. Do you know that that person's name is Jason Azagalian, A-Z-A-G-L-I-A-N? Was that your seller, do you know?
Correct, yep.
The first thing is, under our first variance request, is that you show us or explain to us what the practical difficulties and that unreasonably prevent the use of the property for its intended purpose. What are those practical difficulties and that unreasonably prevent you from using the property as it is without the addition?
I guess I'll start. Yeah, the practical difficulties is the use that we have for it. As I said, it is a home gym and woodworking and projects that my wife does, and it doesn't allow, the existing space isn't sufficient enough for us to use the space as we'd like to.
And park a car in.
As we'd like to,
There's no way.
yeah.
All of my gym equipment won't fit in the home. The home was originally a 1920s ranch. The basement is a 1920 ranch. Otherwise, I was considering moving everything to the basement, set it up. Nothing will fit down the stairs. Even if it would, the height of the equipment that I have, my head would be into the ceiling. So that is not an option to move it into the house. The playhouse, or whatever you want to call that little building at the very end of our property, that is literally dinky. It's like a tent, 10 by 10. Nothing will fit in there either. So I have, it's more than like, it's a very important hobby to me, my bodybuilding. I won international and national pro cards, and I love to work out. It is my thing. So it's in my garage, all set up beautifully, but we can't park in there. I make presents for people. I do little projects. Wood chips are everywhere. Inside, it's all messy. I just thought if we can add a little bit more square footage, it would enhance what I do as my she shed, my garage. That's where it's my little domain.
Does the current structure have more than electricity for utilities? In other words, does it have gas and or water and or a bathroom facility in it currently?
It has a heater.
It has gas.
A
for
gas,
heating.
a gas, like a furnace that you just flick on like a thermostat in your house.
But it does not
But
have
there's no water.
It is not a
Okay.
bathroom.
No.
Mr. Borden, do we know if that was approved as part of the 2005 garage building?
I'm trying to get through the file, guys, and I'm not seeing really any good information other than I found a survey drawing.
Okay. All right. All right, I think that's the only questions I had, thanks.
Mr. Nelson?
I'm good, thank you.
Mr. Jameson?
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Apologize.
That's all right.
So I think you, in my opinion, you've demonstrated a practical difficulty. As far as the other R1A lots that would allow a building of your size and height, I think that qualifies as substantial justice in complying with your property rights. And it would be unnecessary burdensome for you to work out with your head in the ceiling of the basement. So I work out myself. I haven't won any international pro cards or anything, but maybe someday. Do you guys think that, I mean, it sounds like there isn't any significant impact to adjacent properties.
There's not.
Yeah,
It's
so
literally
it's a
just,
pretty wooded lot. I mean, can the neighbors even see it from inside their houses? Could they see the backside of your garage?
I would say from the inside of their house, maybe the tail end, once it gets extended, maybe, but that would be a stretch.
Okay, and given that the other R1A lots are authorized buildings of this size, I think it preserves the neighborhood character. So I'd be satisfied with these variances, Mr. Chairman. And I don't have any questions for you guys, unless you'd like to tag on to anything I've said. Okay.
Mr. Swagger?
I have a question concerning the actual layout. I see that on the north side, which has the narrowest setback, 6 feet, you've got a 12 by 8 overhead door. That's a pretty big door. What did you, have you got something that you intend to put in there that it can, without using the neighbor's property?
Oh, this
To
is
get
gonna
to
be
it?
the garage door. No, that's not intended to be functional in the sense that we need it that open to move things in and out. It's just to have more, to open it up, to have the air go through there.
because it's a gym, because it's my gym.
Now, is-
So airflow would be nice. I love the visual. Would be visually attractive as well. That's in a lot of sunlight. I plan it. It's not going to be your typical garage door. I wanted the glass or the, plexiglass with the black. It'll let in sunlight
So it
and
bears
air.
no, it does not bear any functional thing beyond simply being open? Is that what you're saying?
Well,
Yeah, I
in
don't
and
have-
out of.
yeah, I'm not
Lawnmowers
like-
in there, I mean,
The intention is not to drive cars or lawnmowers or anything in from that direction at all. It's just to create an open airspace.
John, did you say,
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Swagger? No. Did you
oh,
say
the other
6,
John.
yeah, I'm sorry. Did you say 6 feet?
there's a 6-foot setback on the north side, and it just seemed irregular to be that a large door would be there where the narrowest setback is.
I
That would-
teach
That would be
Tabata.
better on the opposite side if it serves any functional purpose.
I teach Tabata at Island Athletics here on the island, and I run a class out of there.
The
And in
dimension that's
preparing
missing.
myself for my own class, I get out to my grass and I do my boot camp style workout myself. And that garage door opening and that air and everything, it's a perfect scene for me. So if I'm trying to create and ask for approval, I'm gonna create my perfect scene. And that garage door to me would be awesome, so.
What's the required setback, side yard? The north-
Detached accessory building, 6 foot.
And she's extending into that with this overhang, correct?
All the building additions at 6
I
foot,
know.
just like the existing.
I know, but John's point, I thought, was, yeah, okay. Thank you. John, anything
And
else?
Yeah, I assume, okay, the existing structure has no second floor associated with it. I assume
Correct.
this new building would not?
Correct.
No.
And no more utilities are being added? That's it for me.
Thank you, Mr. Swire. Mr. Carnego, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I agree with almost, well, actually, everything Mr. Jameson said. As the allowing of this variance, I can't see would create any substantial situation where other structures could use it as a precedent. And I think this is allowing them to use their property in a method that they need, and because of the non-conforming, I don't see anything wrong with that.
Thank you. I have a few questions. I assume the lot size and the house size haven't changed since you bought this?
Correct.
So you knew it was 40 feet wide? You knew the size of the house?
Certainly,
Yeah, why? Is there,
And you bought it anyways?
certainly.
Do you have flooding concerns?
no.
No.
That was the basis of the previous appeal for that.
There are 3 drains around, if that's what there's
I don't know.
drains all around the
No,
garage,
your-
so.
The previous owner said he needed it to be very high because he was afraid it would flood.
I think maybe it is, I mean, but it's never flooded yet like that, and there's
Oh, I'm
drains
just-
everywhere.
I-
Maybe that's
I
why he
believe
put in
you.
those 3?
I believe you.
Okay.
That's fine. So you have 2 non-conforming structures at the rear of this property. And it appears that the existing garage was built contrary to the Zoning Board of Appeals ruling, correct? Mr. Borden?
It would appear that way, yes.
So does that not fall under section 18.9? It's an unlawful nonconformity.
It's all in how you want to look at it, Mr. Chair. We're viewing it as a non-conforming building, lawful or unlawful,
If it's unlawful
up to the commission, up to the board.
or the attorney, somebody has to make a ruling.
What is the,
The
what
exact
does that
verbiage.
mean if it's?
No nonconformity shall be permitted to continue in existence if it is unlawful at the time it was established. Period.
So I think we would be doing injustice to this family by punishing them for the actions of the previous owner when they weren't aware of it.
I don't see that written in the ordinance, sir.
I mean, that's, I mean, people come before the township board looking to be done justice, and we should do them justice and not punish them for the previous owner's behavior.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask, is your point that they should tear down the garbage
My
garage
point-
they have now?
My point is, we should determine if it's an unlawful nonconformity before we
What is-
proceed.
What is?
The existing structure.
And if it is, what would your point be, that they should tear it down?
No, that they shouldn't be allowed to make it worse.
Well, in my opinion, I agree with Mr. Yeager. It doesn't change my opinion. It's there.
That's fine.
I think for something to be unlawful, a person has to have committed a crime. And
Yeah.
which would be a
If you-
violation of this ordinance, right? Which the previous owner did, but these owners did not. They can't be held accountable for their actions.
And we shouldn't further this unlawful nonconformity then.
Well,
What-
if I may add that, I don't know if by creating more space makes it by definition worse. It's just a continuation of an existing.
Of an existing
variance that happened
nonconformity.
that was through the township office.
But
And
it seemed like somebody signed off on
Yeah.
it. Somebody signed off on it. I mean,
Yeah,
and
and-
we have no idea how or what, and even Brian couldn't figure that out. So honestly, even if it's unlawful, somebody here
Some
said
at
it
the
was
state
okay.
level
I guess. I
approved it.
mean, that's
And
all we
we
can
have a
assume.
final.
it doesn't matter who approved it or who didn't approve it. Just like it doesn't matter that your lot is 40 feet and your neighbor's lot is 120 feet.
So-
I mean,
so
It
the
is
remedy-
what it is.
I understand what you're saying. So to
Thank
me,
you.
the remedy of that would be then, if I understand the nature of your position, then would be to tear it down. That's the remedy for what you're describing.
I doubt that anyone up here is going to ask you to tear it down.
I wouldn't expect that either, right? No. But I don't see where this request to add to it makes it worse or continue.
You've got an existing building that's non-conforming.
Okay?
You want to basically increase the size of that non-conformity. You don't think that makes the situation worse?
So I think
You've got
that's a-
X, and you're going to add 10 to it. Now you have X plus 10. That's what you're doing.
Makes it larger. I don't know if the word worse applies. Certainly larger applies.
You have a nonconformity that's so big, and now you're making it bigger. Sorry. Correct? To me, that makes it worse.
So I would,
Excuse me. In addition, you have an extra non-conforming use because you've got what's being referred to as a tent-sized building that was there when you bought.
Absolutely, 100%.
Well, I'm sorry. I do not see where you have any extraordinary circumstances. You
Everybody
bought this-
around us has what we
it-
are seeking.
You bought this lot, ma'am, based on the size that it has. You chose to buy that lot. Nobody told you to buy it. You bought it with your eyes wide open. You knew how big it was. You knew how
And we
little
had it
it was.
inspected and everything, so why is it like the first that we're hearing that all this non-conforming stuff is there?
You
Like,
know,
we went through
I can
the,
agree with that.
yeah, so
I can totally agree with that.
Mr. Chair, I would proffer that because this is a legal public body, that if we were to approve these variances, that would thus make it a lawful building. It would no longer be an unlawful building, especially as it was
You're saying
constructed with
retroactively, we're gonna approve something
No,
that
I'm
the
saying
previous
that-
zoning board denied?
Yes.
No.
This board can overrule the previous board's rulings, just like the township board can change an ordinance that a previous board passed.
I'm not sure I agree with that. And without Mr. Assorti's opinion, I'm in no position to agree with that.
Okay.
Any more comments? Anyone?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, you know, the township exercises discretion when they're enforcing ordinances. Very rarely is the interpretation absolutely black and white. I would suggest that the building was built, and at the time, 2005 or 2006, whenever, it was inspected, and an occupancy permit, when final permits were given, the township at that point made the decision that we're talking about here today as to whether it's legal or not legal. If they would have felt that it was illegal to the extent that, in black and white it is, they would have required it to be knocked down, but they didn't. So they accepted it. However, whatever mistake was made that caused it to be built that way, the township accepted it. And I think from my perspective, I start from that position. Yes, ZBA said don't build it. Yes, it got built, but yes, the township then turned around and said this is okay. And so on that basis, I look at it from the standpoint of, okay, can this building, which the township already has said is okay, be expanded? That's the way I view it.
I agree. I agree, John. What about the extra building in the back? Do we want to address that?
Entirely up to the board, Mr. Chair. I didn't find anything in the file as I, again, am quickly sorting through it. I didn't see anything in the file related to the smaller detached building.
So we have no confidence there were building permits for that?
I'm not gonna say one way or the other. Lori can certainly look into it in
Yes, I understand.
in the BSNA, but I didn't see
Do you
it.
have any concept were building permits issued for that in your packet you obtained from
No idea.
whoever? Yeah, that's what I thought, Jeff. Okay, any further, sir, do you have anything else to add? You're the only audience member here, and you're standing, so I assume you have,
He's
I assume you have something to say. Oh, okay.
I was trying to help them through the process by standing here. So,
Moral support?
moral support.
I like that. I'm sure they appreciate it. Thank you for your efforts. Okay, anything else from the board? Brian, anything else?
I'm all set, Mr. Chair.
I see our enforcement officer was here and left. So he had no comments.
Not.
Clever young man. All right, at this point, I will entertain a motion one way or the other. Anyone?
So I'll move based on practical difficulty, the preservation of property rights, and to provide substantial justice to approve these variances that are before us today.
Okay, Jameson.
Yeah, no, it's fine, guys. They're both
corrected
last
me,
name.
I apologize for the frivolity.
You've corrected me a few times tonight. I'll see if I can't make it.
Yeah,
right.
I've done it too. Okay.
That's fine.
I
You're good.
I
You're
appreciate,
good.
I thank you all. We have a motion, we have a support. Voice vote is all that's needed, I assume. Lori?
Pardon?
Just a voice vote?
I'm sorry.
Never mind. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Lori, did you get that?
Yes.
Okay, it's approved. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving right along. Thank you, sir. Okay, according to the agenda, we now have the pleasant task of electing officers to this quasi-judicial body.
What's that mean, quasi?
That means we do not report to the Board of Supervisors. Our decisions can only be overturned by the courts.
Seems like they can be overturned by quite a few people.
Enough. Thank
There
you.
was a fence that was overturned that we voted against, in addition to the one you pointed out tonight.
Anyways, I would accept, since the chairperson position is vacant, I would accept nominations for the position of chairperson.
I would nominate Gary Bailey.
Do we have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you for your confidence. We now have an opening for the position of vice chairman.
I would nominate Chuck Orjo.
I second. Any discussion? Hearing none, a vote would be in order. All those in
Aye.
favor of Chuck?
Aye.
Motion carried.
What? What did you say? Maybe.
Thank you for your help. We now have an opening for the underpaid position of secretary. And we're all underpaid. I shouldn't be joking up here, I guess. Okay, do we have any does anybody,
I would like to nominate a person that's not here, Mr. Mark Mills.
Mark Mills.
We don't know if he would accept, so maybe that doesn't work.
worse for me, but, what? He doesn't have to be here, and I know. Any,
You could table that nomination till the next meeting if you like.
Well, he can probably turn it down if you want us to. If you correct him enough times.
yeah, let's vote. If he doesn't, if he chooses, if he has strenuous objections,
I move to nominate Mark Mills
second.
as the secretary.
Any discussion? Hearing none, a vote would be in order. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. Thank you.
I'll tell him congratulations tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Yeager. Hang on. We now have comments and miscellaneous, which is next meeting. Lori?
Yes, we do have something on for
Oh,
September
great.
You know what day it is?
28th.
Okay, you sure? Okay.
Any other comments from the board? They're seeing there are none in the public. We have no public comment. Okay, I will turn this over to Mr. Jameson Yeager, who will
Thank
now
you.
brief us on the quote, Open Meetings Act. It's my understanding this is a new requirement for this board.
So my apologies, I'm almost too short to use this podium. Some concerns with commissions who are not this one. Am I gonna be so tall, Brian? We're gonna go over this. It's gonna take about 5 minutes. This board doesn't have Doesn't have a lot of the issues some of the other boards might, I shouldn't say issues, some of the other processes the other commissions might have that might cause some issues with the Open Meeting Act. This will be brief. So the bodies that are covered under the Open Meeting Act are any state or local legislative or governing body, including boards, commission, committees, subcommittees, authorities, or councils. So we're a commission, so it applies to us, or a board. For a regular meeting, a public body must post within 10 days after the meeting, after the first meeting, its agenda. So we don't have an annual meeting calendar, but if we did, 10 days after our very first meeting of the year, we would have to post that calendar. What we do have would probably be considered special meetings. A special meeting shall be posted at least 18 hours before the meeting, and I'm sure we're way ahead of that, right? So the notice of the meeting has to be posted somewhere it can be seen, so it could be posted in the lobby, or just inside the door, or even on the outside of the door. So agendas, there's no requirement that the public notice include an agenda, and there's no agenda format required by the Open Meeting Act. However, if you do violate the Open Meeting Act in some way, it's a misdemeanor, and you can be charged not more than $500 per single offense. All decisions made in a public meeting must be open to the public. So in order for it to be a decision, there has to be a quorum, right? So if me, the chairman, and Mr. Nelson get together and we talk about all these great things we're going to do, that's not a quorum and it's not a decision. But as soon as Charles shows up, now it's a quorum. Now we can't have that discussion because the public couldn't be there. That applies to phone calls and sub-quorum meetings. So if Mr. Bailey decides he's going to call all 7 board members and find out if we're going to approve the packet next month, that would be considered a meeting, and we would be in violation of the Open Meeting Act. So essentially, anytime you have enough people to make a decision, you can't have a conversation that results in decision making, is the basis of it. Because the public's entitled to hear that decision making, and they can't listen in our phone calls. That includes text messages too. So it does not, the Open Meetings Act does not apply to social gatherings and chance gatherings. So if it just so happens all 7 of us run into each other on the foyer tomorrow morning, that's not a meeting. Agenda and notice doesn't need to be published. However, again, we can't have any discussions that would result in decision making. So canvassing board members to find out how they might vote on something is not a violation of the Open Meeting Act. So if I decide to call all 6 members of the board and ask you if you're going to approve the variance next month, that doesn't violate the Open Meetings Act because there isn't conversation taking place between a quorum or 4 of us. Social gathering, yeah. Emails can also be considered a meeting if there's a quorum. So if you get 4 of us on an email and we start deciding things, we just violated the Open Meeting Act. And that includes discussion of deciding things. A caveat, you cannot use emails or other electronic communications or a piece of paper to have a secret ballot either. So you can't pass a piece of paper down where we all check yes or no and at the end be like, okay, this measure fails. Because the public has a right to see how we vote. So hiding your decision as a appointed official, or in my case, elected official from the public, is what the Open Meeting Act attempts to prevent. And then closed sessions, there's only 6 instances where you can have a closed session. I can't think of too many where the Zoning Board of Appeals would have a closed session. But the 6 reasons are to consider the dismissal, suspension, or disciplining, or to hear complaints or charges brought against an individual public officer, employee, staff member, individual agent. So I guess in that case, maybe a member of the public has a complaint against some member of the ZBA, or maybe our enforcement officer, or Brian. At that point, I guess we could go into a closed meeting, but I don't believe this board has any legal authority to hear complaints of that nature, so I'm not sure that would even really fly.
You might have the ability to refer a matter of dismissal to the Board of Supervisors.
Yes, actually, yes. That would be one way that you could have a closed meeting in that regard.
That's happened on other commissions and committees I've been on.
Yep. Strategy and negotiating sessions in relation to a collective bargaining agreement, but ZBA doesn't have any employees, let alone a union. To consider the purchase or lease of real property. To consult with an attorney regarding a trial or settlement strategy in connection to specific pending litigation, which hopefully doesn't apply to ZBA either. Okay.
John, in front of you. Yes. You have been deposed. You have been involved in
Okay.
legal matters that concern this board. When a decision, Chuck, correct me if I'm wrong, when a decision is appealed to circuit court.
That makes sense. So in that case, the reason you could go into a closed session is because this board collectively and individually has a right against self-incrimination. So we could go into a closed session, have a discussion with our representative, and then exit the closed session and continue the meeting. To review and consider the contents of an application for employment, so if we were hiring a ZBA employee, and to consider material exempt from discussion by state or federal statute. So if we're reviewing the CIA's secret missile silo on the north end of the island, we could do that in a closed session as well. If we were to go into a closed session, it requires a 2/3 roll call vote of the current members on the board. In that case, I believe 4 cuts it for ours. Actually, here, let me make sure. I think we need 5. Okay, you're better at the math than I am. So we would need 5 members to go into a closed session. So, and it has to be a roll call vote. It can't be a voice vote. And then once we complete the closed session, we would have to make a motion to exit the closed session, return to a normal open session before we adjourn the meeting. We can't adjourn the meeting from the closed session. Decisions must be made in an open meeting. So we can go into the closed session, we can gather all the information, but as soon as we're going to make a vote of any kind, it must be in an open session. There is no such thing as an executive session. I don't think I've ever heard that used around Grosse Ile Township, but that's another term people use for like a closed session. Staff and others may join in the closed session if they have a reason to be there. So like our personnel that work for this board and planning. Forcibly excluding persons from a closed session. So if we tell Brian to leave and he doesn't, we get the local police officer up here to take him out in irons. No one may be excluded from a meeting otherwise open to the public, except for in breach of peace. So we're off closed sessions now, back to regular sessions. The public can attend these meetings. They don't have to be from Grosse Ile. They just have to be public. No one is required to identify themselves or where they live to attend the meeting. However, this board may require that they do that to speak in the meeting, which is a level above attending a meeting. We may limit public comment for time, but not individuals. So we can't say 5 of you could speak, the other 10 can't, or something like that. We could also, if there's like 500 people in here, we could be like, okay, can you guys pick 10 people to represent your opinions? But if they say no, we got to listen to all 500 of them. The meeting must be held in a location that is generally open to the public, such as this boardroom. The public has no right to address the commissions during its deliberations on a particular matter. So when we set aside time for public comment, that's their time. They can't just interrupt the chairman or anybody else and interact with us. In that case, they would be out of order. The right to attend a public meeting includes the right to tape recorded, video recorded, broadcast live on the radio, telecast live on television, and any other broadcasting of the public meeting. So, minutes. At a minimum, minutes show the date, time, place, members present, members absent, any decision made, and the purpose or purposes for which a closed session is held, if one is held. Minutes have to be proposed minutes made available. Oh, they have to be made available to the public within 8 days after the applicable meeting. Approved minutes must be made available to the public within 5 days after the body's final approval. Minutes must be approved at the next subsequent meeting, and closed session minutes would be kept separately, and they can be approved without discussion. So we could approve our minutes from closed meeting 2, last month without discussing the contents, but they still have to be approved in an open session. A quorum is the minimum number of personnel that could make a decision. So for our board is 4. A member of a public body who is disqualified due to a conflict of interest may not be counted in the established quorum. So if John's trying to get a variance, he doesn't count as part of the 7. Now our quorum would still be 4 because it's a majority. Members may abstain from votes if they feel there is a conflict of interest or if they just feel they are abstaining. However, because our vote is a majority style vote, abstaining is just a vote for no, right? You call for a vote to adjourn the meeting. You already know that. All members of the board may vote, including the chairperson. You're aware of that. So majority just means 50% plus 1. You guys, everybody knows that. Proxy voting is allowed, proxy voting is not allowed. Because it would remove the public from the board. So you can't vote by email again or something like that. When there is a roll call vote and it is divided, when there's a voice vote and it's divided, you should go to a roll call vote. You can have a board or a quorum by teleconference, but you must always do a roll call vote for teleconference. And secret ballots aren't allowed. And then if there's a tie vote, the motion does not carry because it does not have a majority. So those are the high points of the Open Meeting Act. Is there anybody that has any questions? Yes, sir. That's all right. You know what? It applies to the individuals who violated it. At least that's the way Mr. Assorti explained it to me. So because it's a misdemeanor, it would go to the court, and the court would determine the penalties. But theoretically, it could be each individual who violated each time they violate. So if... Right. And generally speaking, what I've been told is if you accidentally violate the Open Meeting Act, you got to go back and do what you were supposed to do right, because whatever you did in closed session doesn't count. But if you intentionally violate it, then I could see them prosecuting you for it. So.
In the past, we've had a few motions to have a closed meeting. We start a meeting, and somebody wants to go discuss something, and we've then gone and have a closed meeting. So in order to do that, there has to be a motion, and then
Yes, and you can only do it in the case of those 6 things I stated. So, and I'll leave this copy with the chairman as well so we can reference it. But yeah, unless you can't just go into a closed session because you just want to go talk over here and not have anybody hear you. So.
My advice would be that this matter is coming up not just in the Open Meetings Act, but because people are using emails, text, and communicating in a closed session form that they don't believe is closed session. So I would suggest all board members to refrain from using your emails or texts that may appear to be violating the Open Meetings Act because you're coming very close to crossing the line.
Sure.
The negative impact will be then your emails, your text, and your phone will be subject to discovery and a civil lawsuit.
And actually, any of our communications on this public body are considered FOIA-able. So.
I will tell you, based on my federal government experience with court cases where a gentleman who shall be nameless made a joke about a matter that was being litigated contractually. Emails are forever.
Yeah.
It was discovered, he was put through the ringer by our attorney and the contractor's attorney. He was, you know, whipped with a wet noodle and everything else. And it was embarrassing to the U.S. Army, I will tell you that. And it wasn't a pretty thing. So email is discoverable, it lasts forever. There are ways to get around it, but
Yeah, I think
try.
anytime you just call someone, you're not violating the Opens Meeting Act. If you remember that, like if you're like, I got to call Jameson about something, there's no way I can have a conversation on the phone with any of you that violates the Open Meeting Act because there isn't enough of us having the conversation. So me and John could talk all day about how we're going to vote on the water mains next week or whatever. That doesn't matter as long as 4 of us don't do it. So.
So, but you can individually, you were saying, call 4 or 5.
Yep.
That still doesn't violate.
Right. Unless you do a 4-way call, then you're up the creek. So, thank you, board, Mr. Chairman.
Appreciate it. Yeah, we're not adjourned. That's all I have. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Yeager.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else? Last chance, comments,
Oh, wait.
questions, concerns? Thank you. With that, I would accept a motion to adjourn. By anyone?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.